And welcome to everybody joining us today for the Bronx Museum's April Family Affair. So this is a program that for the past year we've been doing about once a month on Saturday afternoons for an hour over Zoom. We present 2 half-hour art activities from our wonderful museum educators. If you ever attended a family affair program before the pandemic, we do those at the Bronx Museum itself. We do anywhere from 4 to maybe 7 or 8 a year, again on Saturdays. And those are drop-in events where our educators are stationed all throughout the museum, leading art activities that are related to the exhibits that we have or have to do with the time of year, the seasons, or any holidays or cultural events at that time. So we've made a few changes to make it work virtually. We'd love to know what you think of the events. You can always email us education@bronxmuseum.org if there's anything specific that you'd like to see or that you'd like us to add to these events. We would love to get your feedback. My name is Nell and I work at the museum.
And I'm Patrick, I also work at the museum.
So we'll be doing one activity, and then at about 2:30, one of our artist educators, Edwin, is going to join and he'll share another activity. So the second activity will begin right around 2:30. And if you have to go at any point, we record these events and we'll put the entire thing on the Bronx Museum's website afterward. So you can always catch up with something that you missed or watch something again if you want to repeat the activities. And before we get started, the last thing I'll mention is just that we provide free art materials for use with these activities during these events. They come in bags like this. And you can always pick them up at the Bronx Museum on the Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday before one of these Saturday events. You should be able to follow along and do the activities, even if you're not able to stop by and get the bag, if it's not convenient or you don't have the chance. But if you can get the bag, we recommend it just because it will have all packed in one place, all of the materials that you'll need to do these activities. That said, again, if you weren't able to do that, we'll always suggest things you could use that you might have at home or things you could substitute. So we'll go ahead and get started. And so if you were able to get these from the museum, go ahead and make sure you have it with you. And if you didn't grab a bag, I'll let you take a minute now to gather some materials that you might need so that you don't have to get up later. So the contents of this bag, we have just some plain paper. This is like printer paper, and if you don't have this, any kind of paper that's not all covered with something so that you can draw and write on it is great. We also have this watercolor paper or cardstock. This is a little thicker. If you have any paper that's thicker than just printer paper, that's going to be great to use. And we also have this watercolor kit. So again, if you have watercolors, those are going to be great. Otherwise, you can use other paints that you have, or even something like food coloring can work in a pinch. It's pretty similar. We also have crayons, colored pencils. So for these, if you're substituting at home, anything you can draw or write with that's colored will work. Markers are great too. And then the last thing in the bags is just a regular pencil. So again, pencil or pen are great. So I'll just give everybody, another 30 seconds to grab those so that you can settle in for the rest of the program.
I would suggest also if you can get a little bit of water. We're not going to need it right away for this activity, but we will need it for the second activity. And
I'm actually going to do that now so that I don't have to get up later too.
Yeah, so exactly. Great idea.
The water is for Edwin's activity, which is when we're going to be using the watercolors.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. I see some folks in the chat are ready. If you're still grabbing them, we're going to start actually by reading a story so you can continue to settle in. So for this first activity, April is National Poetry Month. So we're going to be creating some portraits of people that we love who are important to us and writing a poem in maybe a different way than you've done before that I'll explain to you about that person. So we're going to start off just by reading a story, which is something that we do in a lot of our education programs. We also have a book corner during our in-person family affair programs. So this is a book called The Word Collector, and it's by Peter H. Reynolds. Collectors collect things. Some people collect stamps. Some people collect coins. Others collect rocks. Some collect art. Some collect bugs. Others collect baseball cards. Some people collect comic books. And Jerome, what did he collect? Jerome collected words. He collected words he heard. Certain words caught his attention. He collected words he saw. Certain words jumped out at him. He collected words he read. Certain words popped off the page. Short and sweet words, two-syllable treats, and multi-syllable words that sounded like little songs. And you can see the words above his head are words like kaleidoscope, wonderful, guacamole. There were words he did not know the meaning of at first, but they were marvelous to say. Aromatic, vociferous. There were words whose sounds were perfectly suited to their meaning, like molasses and smudge. Jerome filled his scrapbooks with more and more of his favorite words. Jerome's collections grew. He began organizing them. Dreamy, science, sad, action, poetic. One day, while transporting them, Jerome slipped and his words went flying. They're all the words he's been collecting. As he began to pick them up, he noticed his collections had become jumbled. Big words next to little words, sad words next to dreamy words. So he had organized all of those words and now they all fell into totally different places. Jerome began stringing words together. Words he had not imagined being side by side. He used his words to write poems. He used his poems to make songs. They moved, they delighted. Some of his simplest words were his most powerful. I understand, I'm sorry, thank you, you matter. Jerome eagerly collected more and more of his favorite words. The more words he knew, the more clearly he could share with the world what he was thinking, feeling, and dreaming. One breezy afternoon, Jerome climbed the highest hill, pulling a wagon packed with his word collection. He smiled as he emptied his collection of words into the wind. He saw children in the valley below scurrying about, collecting words from the breeze. Jerome had no words to describe how happy that made him. The end. So we're going to come back to what Jerome does with the words in that book in just a moment. But first, for our inspiration for the visual part of what we're doing, I'm just going to share some work that we have up at the Bronx Museum currently, if I can. Sorry, I'm having some slight technical difficulties, so we might just have to wait a moment. And welcome to anybody who's joining us now. We're just about to start the visual part of the activity. Okay, well, we'll come back to this if I can figure it out. But what I wanted to share was some work by an artist at the museum. Currently, we have an exhibit that's called What We Call Home. Teens Curate the Collection. So some teenagers who are involved in an education program at the museum. Let me see if this works. Picked some works of art that the museum has in the collection. And one of the artists that they picked is an artist named John Ahern, who together with another artist named Rigoberto Torres. It looks like I'm not going to be able to share this.
I can share
okay,
now.
That would be great.
Let me see if I can get them.
It's technical difficulties. Perfect. Yes, this is something we don't have to worry about. And this image is great if you just want to stay on it. We don't have to worry about this in our in-person programs. But so again, these are sculptures. So they're actually 3D by an artist named John Ahern working together with Rigoberto Torres. And one of the main things these artists do is create these sculptures or busts, so from the shoulders up to the head of people in their neighborhood, people that they know. And so just to get started and just to get our creative juices flowing, go ahead and grab your colored pencils or your crayons, or again, your markers or any other colored thing you have. And take one of the sheets of paper that you have, not one of the really thick ones. And we're just going to take about 30 seconds, pick one of these two people, and you're just going to make a really quick drawing of what you see. So if you haven't already, I'll tell you when to stop, but go ahead, pick one of those figures and draw them. So again, because this drawing is so quick, you really just want to capture what you think are the most important shapes and colors. Okay, your time is about halfway up. And go ahead and stop. So again, because they were so short, they might be really simple. You might have left a lot of stuff out. But it's just about starting to look at these shapes and thinking about, if you're making a picture of a person, what are the things you're sure that you want to include? So just to warm up one more time, go ahead and look at the other figure that you didn't draw at first. And we're just going to do the same thing. Take 30 seconds and you're going to draw what you see. So go ahead and get started. And again, your time's about halfway up. Just a few more seconds. And go ahead and stop. So again, as you were looking at these people, and you can see Patrick and I are drawing the same people, but ours look very different because we are focusing on different things. I think he was really doing shapes. I wanted to get across a couple colors. So think about if you noticed anything while you were doing this. For example, I noticed the figure on the right. There's something that I really like about her expression. It makes me feel like I could really imagine meeting that person. Who she's looking at in that way is an interesting question. And so now that we're all warmed up, if you did this on your thin sheet of paper, if you have another one, grab that, or else just turn your piece of paper over. So first of all, fold your paper in half. And Patrick, you can stop screen sharing. Thank you. So fold your paper in half, and you can either just rip it, or if you have scissors, you can use those, and you're actually going to tear this into 2 pieces. And if it comes across jagged, that's totally cool. I think that looks better anyway. So you're going to take this and take a few moments and think about a person that you want to make a picture of. So just like those artists we were just looking at created images of people in their community, think about somebody that is really special to you that you know really well. Or your other option is you could make a self-portrait. So that's an image of yourself. So take a few moments to choose who you're going to do. And if you're attending this with your family, maybe you want to do somebody that you're sitting with right now. That could be nice because you get to look at them when you do it. Or it could be somebody maybe that you haven't gotten to see in a while that you really miss. So just take a few moments. Maybe you already know, and in that case, that's great. You can get started. But if you're still wondering, just go ahead and pick somebody. You can always do this again with different people. Take out or grab your crayons, your colored pencils, or whatever else you have, and just start to draw that person. And now you can make this something that's just the head and shoulders, or maybe this person or you really likes to do some activity that you want to show them doing. So it's up to you if you want to do like a full body image or just the head. If you're doing just the head, you probably want to start with the shape of the head. But like we saw with those images of the 2 people we just drew, think about the colors you want to get across. What color is this person's or your hair and eyes? If they have a favorite color, maybe that's what you want to make them wear. I know the person that I'm drawing has really interesting colored glasses, so I'm going to make sure that those come across. And as you continue to draw this person, first of all, remember that if we go on to the next step, which we're going to in just a minute or two, you can always come back and add more detail to your image. So don't feel like that has to be the end. But also you can begin to think, what else do you want to add to your portrait of this person that really would let you know that it's them? Like, is there an expression that's always on their face? Maybe there's something that they really like, a kind of food or a hobby that they have, so you can draw something that represents that. Okay, and so again, I'm not done with my drawing. You might not be either, but we can always add more to it later. So what we're gonna do in the remaining time that we have is remember Jerome, the word collector that we just heard about. So he had all of these collections of words, and then in the story, he drops all the words, but he actually really likes how they end up looking in that combination. So now you have your drawing. So grab the other half of that piece of paper. And again, you can use scissors, but I think it's more fun just to rip this up. You're gonna rip it into a bunch of smaller pieces. So you can rip it in half and then just keep ripping those pieces in half. But you want at least 8 pieces. So that's, if you keep ripping it in half and then rip those pieces in half, you should have 8 pieces that are about this big. So grab those pieces. If you want, you can keep ripping them up, but make sure they're not too tiny. And so again, think about the person that you decided to draw, or again, maybe it's yourself, and think about some words that come to mind when you think of this person. So one word you might write could just be who this person is to you. It could be what you call them, what your relationship is. You could just write me or your name or their name. And then what you want to do is continue to do that for all your slips of paper. Take your slips of paper and just write a word or a phrase that makes you think of this person. So it really could be anything, something that they say a lot, again, a hobby that they have or their favorite food, an inside joke that you have with them. Again, if you're doing this with your family and you've drawn somebody in your family, you can ask them if they have ideas. You can work on this together. But just take about 2 more minutes to write as many as you can. And again, don't worry if you haven't filled all the slips, but really it's great to just write the first things that come to mind and not worry too much about it. You also have the option of instead of writing something on a specific one of these, you can draw a little symbol of something that makes you think of them. Like on one of these, I'm going to draw a cat because the person that I made the portrait of really loves cats. If you've already written on all your slips of paper, you can always grab more paper and continue to do this, but just take about another minute and try to do as many slips as you can. Okay, so your next step, once you have somewhere around 8 of these, maybe it's a lot more, maybe you only have a couple, either way, it's totally fine. But now, just like Jerome, you are going to grab all of your slips and just mix them up. And what you want to use as the surface for mixing them up is the portrait that you have of the person. And so once all of the words are mixed up, make sure that they're turned over and right side up so you can read them. And then, like Jerome, just look at the order of these words. You can read them to yourself, you can read them aloud or have somebody read them to you. But what you've actually just created with these words, and then by shuffling them up, is a poem about this person. So look at the order, look how it looks. And now if you want, you can start moving the words around. Maybe it sounds better in a different order. So thank you, Patrick. And here's mine. So I believe that Patrick has chosen to make a portrait of one of his cats.
A cat, yeah, Marquise.
Yep. Or just a cat. So yeah, you can definitely also do this for animals. And I chose to do a friend of mine that I haven't seen in a long time. And so, yeah, that's a beautiful poem, Patrick. And you can also create several different poems if you want to shuffle up those words. So now the last step for all of you is if you have another piece of paper or you want to write on the back of this drawing, once you have your words in an arrangement that you like, you can just rewrite your poem and maybe give it a title, which could just be the name of the person. Yeah.
Great, you know.
Yeah, so that is how to create a word jumble poem and a portrait of somebody. And again, you can, of course, now continue to add to your portrait, continue to shuffle around your words until you have something that you're happy with. But hope you enjoyed this. You can do it as many times as you like with as many people and animals as are in your life. And we would love to hear who you decided to create a portrait of if you want to put it in the chat, or you can also email us any images that you have. So thank you for joining me in writing some wonderful poems. And now we're going to bring in one of our educators at the museum, Edwin, who's going to do the second activity.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Edwin.
How are you doing?
Pretty good. I just wrote my poem about my cat.
Nice.
Yep.
I like your drawing.
Thank you.
So my name's Edwin Gonzalez. I'm a visual artist and educator working with the Bronx Museum. Today, what I'll be doing with you all is we're going to be reading a story that's about Earth Day. And after that, we're going to be doing watercolor painting inspired by the book. It has a really neat style of showing water. And the story is basically about this young lady's relationship with a river. It's a bilingual story, so I'll be reading in both English and Spanish. And so I'm ready to get started. Do I have sharing privileges already? Oh. Okay, great, thank you. Can you see my screen? Okay, great. So the name of the story is I Know the River Loves Me. Or in Spanish, it's Yo sé que el río me ama. It's by Maya Cristina Gonzalez, who's both the writer and the illustrator of the story. So we can see from looking at the cover of the book that it has to do with a body of water, which we can see some of the illustration of, and we can see a young lady. We can see that some of it is in black and white and that some of it is color. Mirando a la imagen, la primera página del libro, se puede ver la niña que es en blanco y negro, pero también podemos ver diferentes aspectos que se ven adentro del libro que son en color. So we're going to get started with the story now. I am here to visit one of my best friends in the world, the river. She loves me. Estoy aquí para visitar a uno de mis mejores amigos en el mundo, el río. El río me ama. I wonder what it means when she says that the river loves her. ¿Qué pensamos? ¿Qué quiere decir la niña con decir que el río le ama? Vamos a ver la historia para saber más. I know the river loves me because I can hear her calling me as soon as I am close. Yo sé que el río me ama porque tan pronto como me acerco, oigo que me llama. I wonder what it means for a river to be calling her. Vamos a ver qué quiere decir el libro con decir que la llama el río. She jumps and sings when she sees me. Cuando me ve, salta y canta. How does a river jump and sing? I wonder if anyone has any ideas about that. Nell and Patrick, do you have any ideas about what it means for a river to jump and sing?
Well, jumping makes me wonder if maybe she's talking about waves or the movement of the river, but and singing, I don't know what sound you would think would be singing. I guess just the rushing of the river, but I hope she'll tell me.
Yeah, I think maybe it has to do with the waves as well. Nell dice que quizás son las olas brincando. I run to her side and she cools me down. Corro a su lado y me refresca. In the picture, we not only see the river, but we also see butterflies in the sky and we see a fish in the water. También podemos ver mariposas en el cielo y un pez en el agua. I know the river loves me because when I look into her face, she's happy to see me. Yo sé que el río me ama porque cuando lo miro a la cara, está contento de verme. I don't think I've ever seen a face in a river before. No creo que en el pasado yo he visto una cara en el río. Quizás es la imagen de la cara de la niña. Maybe it's the reflection of the little girl's face. When I jump on her back, she holds me up. When I leap into her arms, she takes me in. Cuando brinco sobre su espalda, me sostiene. Cuando salto a sus brazos, me acoge. So we see lots of different little girls here, but I think they're all the same little girl. This was the artist being creative to show her moving around. Podemos ver más de una niña en la imagen, pero pienso yo que el artista decidió ponerla más de una vez para enseñar movimiento.
And maybe the frog is moving too.
Right. Nell says she sees a frog, right? Nell dice que ves una rana, un sapo, y quizás el sapo está moviéndose también. She tugs on my hair and my arms and we flow together. Me asalcía el pelo y los brazos y fluimos juntos. I watch her change like me. In the winter, she is low and quiet. In the summer, she is full and loud. Veo que el río cambia como cambio yo. El invierno está bajo y tranquilo. En el verano está lleno y ruidoso. So we can see that there's two little girls in this picture too. One of them is dressed for summer and one of them is dressed for cold weather. I think it's both the same girl, but in the picture, the artist is just trying to show us different times of the year through her clothing. Podemos ver dos niñas en esta imagen, pero una de ellas está vestido para el verano y la otra por el invierno. Creo que el artista nos está enseñando diferentes partes del año, uno donde está verano y caluroso y el otro es invierno a donde un tiempo que está frío. The river takes care of me and I take care of the river. I only leave behind what already belongs to her. El río me cuida y yo cuido el río. Solo dejo atrás lo que ya a él le pertenece. What do you think belongs to the river in this picture? I see leaves in the water and I see frogs. They look like they belong in the river. But then behind her, I also see some other things. I see bottles. It looks like there are cans in her bag. And there's that plastic thing. So I think she's cleaning out the river. I think that's part of what her relationship with the river is. Vemos en la agua que hay diferentes cosas que pertenecen a la naturaleza. Vemos las ranas, los sapos, también vemos las flores, pero detrás de la niña vemos botellas y latas en su mochila. Creo yo que ella está limpiando el río. Eso es parte de su relación con el río. Ese porque ella enseña que la ama el río tanto y tanto que viene y la visita y la limpia. I know the river loves me. The next time I come, she will be here, waiting for me, singing my name. Yo sé que el río me ama porque cuando yo regreso a visitarla, él me estará esperando, cantando mi nombre. Huh, what an amazing picture we have here. Let's see what's happening. I know the river loves me, and I love the river. Yo sé que el río me ama, y yo amo el río. I think we're finishing the story now, but this picture is very special. What do we think's happening in this picture? I think either the dress is connected to the river or the river is connected to the dress. Se puede ver que el traje y el río están conectados, pero está conectado el río con con el traje o el traje con el río. So they both have the color blue. I think the artist is in a creative way trying to show us how connected she feels with the river emotionally by literally making her connected through the clothing. Pienso yo que el artista, en una manera muy creativa, está enseñando que el río y el vestido de la niña están conectados para enseñar que la niña se siente bien conectado con el río emocionalmente. So now we are going to do a watercolor painting inspired by the story. So we can see that there's a wonderful, unique style that the artist had of making these large, wavy, curved lines going across the page in a repetitious pattern, right? And the colors were kind of limited, right? So mostly we saw blue being used for the water. There are two different kinds of blue. And sometimes we could see a kind of purple color. And then in this painting, you see, similar to the story, there are some orange and green shapes. So those are meant to represent some of the other things we saw in the water, like the fish and the frogs, or sometimes they were leaves, but this is a little abstract, so it could be either, right? So this is what we're gonna do together today. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. And so the supplies that we'll need to create our painting today is we will need some paper. Watercolor paper is really good if you have it. If you were able to get paper from the museum, you probably received watercolor paper.
Yep.
You might want to have some kind of a surface. If it's not something hard like this, you could put a larger paper or some newspaper or gift wrap, whatever you have the home, aluminum foil underneath to protect your work surface or your table so it doesn't get dirty. You'll need a watercolor set, right? So yours might look a little different from mine, but basically we are going to need just a few of the colors, right? So we said that we would probably be using the blues and the green and maybe a little bit of red, right? Oh, and purple too. So you'll also need water. So some kind of container with water, like I have a cup here, right? Whatever you might have. I'm repurposing this thing with jelly in it before. And you'll also need a paintbrush.
So if you got the kit from the museum, just to let you know, this watercolor set has the paintbrush in it.
Great, thanks for sharing that. So I also would recommend that you might want to have a piece of scrap paper. So if there's any paper that's not important that you can use, you could have that to the side. And also maybe a piece of paper towel. Paper towel is good in case you put too much water on your paper or you have a spill. Both of those things can also be used to clean off your paintbrush because when you switch colors, you probably want to clean your paintbrush in between. So I'm just gonna work on my setup a little bit here for a second so that I can flip down my monitor and show you step by step how to do this. Move a couple of things around. Okay. So to make things a little more visible. So I have my watercolor set here. And I have my water. All right, so much like we saw in the picture, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to make these big sort of twisting curved lines that look like a ribbon going across, right? And to use watercolors, for those of you that maybe don't have that much experience using it, you need to use lots of water in order to activate the color. So I'm going to start with this blue here. I'm just going to put a little bit, like make like a little pool so that it's easy to pull from. The more water you use, the lighter the color. The less color you use, the darker. But it takes a little bit of practice. If you are unsure, that's why we have the scrap paper here, so that you can figure out whether you think it's going to be enough or whether you think it's going to be dark or light enough. So I think I have a pretty good amount of water in my blue, and I think I feel comfortable enough to make my first line going across my page. So I'm going to start doing that now. So really, it's just a series of curves. I think it's good to take your time and not rush too much to it, because it'll make it easier for you to do it. You'll probably also notice that, I don't know how much people have noticed this before when drawing or anything, if you breathe slowly, you will also be able to make your lines more easily, because if you're breathing really fast, it kind of makes your hand shake a little bit. So if you kind of relax and you relax your breaths, it makes it easier for you to have a steady hand. So as you might have noticed, I went back into my water and I went back into my color, because it's kind of like a constant thing that you have to do in order to maintain that little pool of water, or it will run out. If it doesn't run out, it might just get a little lighter or a little darker. The quality will change. And even though I'm filling mine, loading my brush as I go along, you probably notice that one side of my paper is darker and one is lighter, right? Because the pigment starts to run out as you go across. But I think it looks nice to have variety.
Yeah, I like it. Edwin, when you do the second line, this is what it looks like to me. It looks like you're trying to make it curve in the same places. It's just above it.
Yeah, I'm deciding to do that because I like that it looks like a pattern, right? At some point, I'm probably gonna break away from it, but I kind of like to create that rhythm for myself first. There's, even if you're doing things that are quite similar, there's often different ways that you can make them where they're not exactly the same. So right now, even though I am following the same shapes, basically, this one's kind of longer than this one's a little shorter, right? And now I think, because I know from having done the first two, that my first side, when I start, is darker. I think I want to switch it up and do the opposite so that I can have the darker part be on this side. Right, so that makes it a little different already.
Sometimes with watercolor, you can like drop a little bit by accident, or make a little squish some color on there by accident for drips, and it actually looks really nice. It's kind of part of the fun thing about watercolor.
Yeah, I agree. And with the strategy that I'm doing, I'm basically going to be using one color at a time to grow across the page. I know we did say that we're going to do more than one color, but I think it's because we have to clean the brush in between different colors so that we don't get the set like muddy. It's probably good to keep that as a strategy, to just do one color at a time and do everything you want to do with that color before you switch to the next one. So basically my goal is to make lines going across the entire page. And if you see now at the bottom, now it's starting to look more different on mine, I think. Nell's looks more consistent than mine does.
Yeah, so because I think my brush might be a little smaller, so I had to keep re-dipping it in the paint, and I think that meant that it didn't fade away as much.
also your shapes look pretty much the same. So disciplined. I'm not as disciplined as you.
My river is going to be very calm.
I had a little room on the top, so I decided to go back on the top and make another line. And if you want to, if you have like, you can make it really light, like a wash, by using lots of water. And again, you probably want to practice on your paper to see if it's dark or light before you make a change on your paper. You can even do like a light wash in between. Just maybe to make it a little more interesting for you.
Mm. Ooh, that's cool.
So yeah, we can make some smaller shapes in between. So there's lots of things you can do, even just using one color, right?
And so, see, I just put down some blue in here and I felt like there was not enough water. It was too dark. So I just added water directly to it to make it thinner.
Oh yeah, that's another thing you can do with watercolors. So I'll show you with one part of mine here in the middle. If you add water to it while it's on the paper, you can still pull it out. Yeah, which is kind of what Mel was explaining. So watercolor is very forgiving. It allows you to do many things. That's what I have so far. I think I'm going to switch colors now.
Mm.
So it's a little hard to tell the difference between the blue and the purple on mine, but I know from having used it before that the just to the side of it, it's the blue color before the purple, but it's a very, very dark blue. I want to try to use a lot of water with it so that it doesn't overtake the whole picture. Okay, I'm going to start with a line here, just in between the other lines that I made.
Mm.
So here's what gets a little tricky. They overlap a little bit, that's fine too, because that's what waves do, right?
Yeah, that makes this very forgiving, I think. And so I'm doing a line over where I had filled in between two lines, and that hadn't totally dried yet, so they're blending a little bit, but I actually think that looks kind of cool. Let's see, right there.
Yeah, I had something like that happen too, where I thought I had enough of the color, but I didn't. So I just went back in and started, I stopped the line and just continued because I ran out. Kind of like Nell was mentioning before, this area was really wet. So I had to actually go a couple of times in to grab some color, and it's bleeding a little bit, but I like the way that looks.
Yeah. And then I think we have about 5 more minutes, just to let you know.
Okay.
I think I might do some green.
Yeah, I'm gonna start using my other colors soon. Gonna switch colors. I think I'm gonna use some of the purple.
And I'm gonna try this experiment. I'm taking some green and I'm gonna really almost trace one of the wet purple lines that I have and see what that does.
Making like a gray color.
So that's where I did it. And I think that looks really cool. It's kind of muddy. Maybe it's a stormy day for my record.
Yeah.
I'm pretty happy with, I think, so I'm switching colors. I don't know if I mentioned this before when I was doing it. I washed my brush in the water, and then I also used my paper towel to clean it off a little bit. So I'm going to now use, I think, some green, and I'm going to make some shapes in there to represent like the fish or the frogs.
Ooh.
So I'm actually making this a little probably darker than I made some of the other lines because I wanted to stand out some. But even so, watercolors are always a little bit transparent or see-through. So it kind of gives it a 3D effect, right? Because you can still see the lines through it.
Because I use the green for some of my water. I think I'm going to use some of the warm colors. So some orange and some red for some fish.
Me too.
Very nice.
Thank you. And I really, yeah, because none of my layers really dried before I started doing more stuff, it gives it this blending effect that I really like.
So now I'm going to do like Nell and Patrick, and I'm going to put some of the orange into.
It's a really nice contrast.
It's nice to kind of keep that for the end so that you're separating your warm colors and your cool colors a little bit so that they pop out more.
Yeah, I'm using yellow in one area, just one area. You know, just at the top, kind of give it like a little glow, you know? Ooh, now I get some cool
Nice.
drips happening. That's cool too.
Oh yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
really cool looking.
Yeah.
I have some smudges and stuff.
Authentic water.
Exactly.
This is
Cool.
mine. Yeah.
Awesome.
So I hope everybody's having a great time this weekend, enjoying the warm weather. I know Earth Day was this weekend. This is a nice thing to do to think about our planet, our Mother Earth. And speaking of moms, I hope that you all have a nice time observing some mother that you love this weekend, now that Mother's Day is coming up.
Yeah, and then so like Edwin said, I think Earth Day was on Thursday, the 22nd. So hopefully as you did this activity, you thought a little bit about water and the planet. Maybe you'll get to enjoy the beautiful weather we're having. And also, I hope you enjoyed writing some poems and thinking about Poetry Month as well. So thank you for coming and spending your time with us. Again, a recording of this whole thing will be on the Bronx Museum's website. So keep an eye out for that if you'd like to rewatch it. You can always email us any comments or questions or pictures of anything that you made. We'd love to see it to education@bronxmuseum.org. And stay tuned for our next family affair, which will be on Saturday, May 22nd. And have a great rest of your day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.